and it's preparing to go live now. So anything that you say after this will be recorded.
Well, do I go to full screen now?
You're already sharing. So yes, you can go to full screen. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Irish Festival today and our talk looking back at times past with artist Kieran Murray. Just a little introduction from me before we go over to Kieran. Obviously what we're trying to do here is build a really nice space for conversation, but what we're going to do first is allow Kieran to give his presentation, and then I'll come to you for question and answers after that. If you've got a question and you don't want to lose it, please feel free to drop it in the chat so that we've got it there to come back to, and I will follow that up with you ready for the Q&A. We think that Kieran's presentation will probably run for about 35 minutes, so we hope that you'll be able to stay with us throughout that, and that we should be away by 3 o'clock for any of you who've got other plans this afternoon. At the end, I'll invite everybody to come on screen and give Kieran a round of applause, but in the meantime, I'm just going to hand straight over to Kieran.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emma, for your introduction, and thank you indeed for your invitation to enable me to show some of my images to a wider audience. First of all, before this is times past, but I'm going to talk a little bit, first of all, about myself and how I got into this sort of thing. I lived in a seaside town north of Dublin, and I got a summer job as a photographer, walking up the beach, taking pictures of people and handing out little tickets, and then they could go down to the shop the next day and pick up the photograph if they wanted. And I learned the mysteries of the dark room and that. So the photographic bug bit and has never left me since. I've been taking pictures ever since. You can't live in Ireland and not be a landscape photographer. As I say, this is not a lecture on landscape photography, but this is the sort of thing I love doing, and Ireland presents you with multiple opportunities for landscape, the changing light, the changing, mostly the changing light, the different weather conditions all contribute to making different pictures, and there's so many different opportunities, lakes, woods, old buildings, things like that. The supply is endless. And I did mention about, different days, no 2 days are the same, and some are much more rewarding than others. This picture was taken down in Kerry at a beach called Clogher, and this was taken last Easter. This young lady, I don't know who she was. She was performing these sort of acrobatics to amuse herself. And I took pictures. I thought it's too good an opportunity to miss. Now, I did go up and see her mother afterwards and sent her the picture, and she was more than delighted. But this same place, I would go back very often, and different days, different pictures, and that's part of the fascination of Ireland and landscape photography in general. I also do a lot of traveling. I love to travel, and particularly over Asia, India, Nepal, Burma, those sort of places. And I like to record life as it's lived by ordinary people. I would be more engaged in photographing people and whatever they're at in their own environment. And I always found people much more than willing to be photographed, doing whatever. Very rarely encountered any antipathy. And lovely, it's just lovely subject matter, colorful and so different to our own. Contrast that with America. This is San Francisco, and it's one of the richest cities in the world, apparently. And yet it's not a happy place. You know, I've never seen so many down and outs and people under poor circumstances, and there's just a little air of tension about it all the time. You know, you talk about photographing the culture of the place. You don't want to get too involved here. This is taken from the other side of the street. We can only assume what's going on. I call it deals on wheels. And I was very pleased with that picture, but I just took it and moved on. Contrast that with these people, don't have a lot, but most of them, you know, very happy and contented in their lives. I'm looking at the that picture in the middle on the bottom, the wee child, and absolutely in great form. She doesn't know that she lives in the 9th poorest country in the world. She's just happy. Her sister's looking after her. And yeah. This is just a few pictures from Burma, another lovely country with a sad, sad history. When I was there was great optimism. Aung San Suu Kyi was standing for elections the following year, and the great hope was that she would be elected, and indeed she was elected. And now 10 years later, she's in jail serving a 27-year sentence for God knows what. But as I say, I love just mixing with people, going about their daily routine, ordinary people in their environment doing ordinary things. And a big part of their life is their faith, particularly the, the Hindus, Buddhists and all. And that's relevant in many ways to what I'll be showing after this. They say that Kathmandu, there are more gods in Kathmandu than people. And I wouldn't be surprised. Every corner, every wall has little niches or little crannies with statues and things that people come all day, every day, come with little offerings. The offerings might be as little as a couple of flower petals, a couple of flower heads, a little grain of rice, a couple of grains of rice. Nothing very expensive or anything like that. Little bits of paint and decorating, and that goes on all day. And again, just trying to capture the culture of life in, this is a Buddhist monastery. These youngsters are supposed to be learning the Tibetan alphabet. South of India, big Islamic community. They were probably too far away to get back to, or to get up to Pakistan when the India was got its independence, and there was this big transition from north to south, from India into Pakistan and vice versa. But quite a large community, as I say, down the south of India. And these reminded me a little bit, there's a Hindu gods. There's so many of them, it's hard to be able to tell who exactly they are. But as I say, it reminded me of the Stations of the Cross. There's the Hindu religion and the Sikhs, and they revere the Golden Temple, and that's in Shimla. So now back to the main drift of our talk, times past. Most of these rooms would sort of date from the 50s and 60s. And as you can see, even at the start, pictures of religious pictures, religious icons formed a big part of their existence. This house was in County Kerry, and my brother-in-law called to me to say, "Aren't you interested in old houses or something?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "There's one over in Duke's Road," and he says, "You should get over quick," because he says, "I'm going to knock it down in the next few weeks." And so we did. This is the same house. This is meat and drink to a photographer. They love textures and decay and dereliction. And again, the holy picture was such a part of these houses in times gone by. This was in Camp in County Kerry, and somebody has wiped the picture up at the top there. I didn't do it to be able to read "God Bless Our Home." And again, this is meat and drink to photographer, the textures and the colors. Off that last room was this room. Now it was pitch dark in there. Myself and my friend Colin went in. I could just barely make out a bike over in the corner, but thanks to the magic of digital photography, you can give long exposures and the image will build up. We didn't realize the color of the walls until we actually got them, because it was just so dark in there. And you can see the little religious effigies on the wall there, the little crucifix and the holy water font. Making my way upstairs, I just love the colors, the palette on that wall. And making my way upstairs again, I love that's it's like a modern art that all those shapes on the wall there. Whenever I see suitcases in these houses, I think of emigration, which would have been a big part of these houses, this part of the country, all during the 40s and 50s, 60s, people going away. In that room that we're looking into, over to the right, left-hand side, there was this lovely picture on the wall. I don't know, it looks like a sort of lady in waiting or something in some posh house. I don't know. I wanted to get over near to have a look, but I couldn't. The floorboard started to, the floor began to sink as I walked over, so I was in danger of ending up with the bicycle downstairs. So I just took this shot from a distance. This is quite near me in Banbridge, actually, a house out the road. And the bike was such a huge feature of times past in Ireland. Very few people around the 50s and 60s would have had cars. So I just love that, the double shapes with the shadow of the bike on the wall and the lovely colors, soft colors on the wall in the background. This is the same house, and you can see the dungarees have been left hung up to dry in front of the fire. And see that round article beside the chair over there on the right-hand side? That's what they call a fan bellows. And there's a little handle there, and you turn that, and it turned the wheel down below it. And by some means, there are little blades in that, and they're pumping air into that. As you turn the wheel, the blades turn and they pump air into the base of the fire to give it a boost, get the flames up if you're going to do a bit of cooking or something like that. Now, another thing I was very keen on, and I will go back there a minute, and it fits in very well with the theme of times past in Ireland, where the holy wells, I reckon there were over 3,000 wells in the holy wells in the country at one time. Not so many now, and many of them just overgrown and dried up. But some of them still very beautiful and still very tenderly cared for. And in fact, we call them holy wells. There were sacred wells before Christianity came to Ireland, because people in pre-Christian pagan times, people thought that they worshipped the earth as a god because it provided everything for them in terms of food, clothing, protection, building, what have you. So to them, water coming up from the ground was thought to be a gift from the god, Mother Earth, and therefore would have special curative or protective powers. So as I say, we had a lot of fun searching these out, and many of them were in beautiful places. What amused us though was the things that people brought to the Holy Well, or I think this was put there by the man that looked after the well. You get this little grotto inside the electric or the microwave. And people would bring things, if they were looking for cures or help, they would sometimes bring something relevant to the malady that they were looking for help with. In this case, perhaps a sick child or something like that, you know, and they would come to the Holy Well to pray and to take away some of the well water and maybe leave something pertaining to what it was that they came to the well about. And what also was amusing was, as I say, see people bring pictures and statues and stuff. Now, I didn't arrange these or anything, but it's quite a humorous coming together of these. St. Patrick is looking very disapprovingly at the Virgin Mary and her son. But as I say, you did get some strange coming togethers. This was Ballyvourney, St. Gobnet's well, and it's easy to, you know, be amused at the trinkets and things that people leave, but behind every one of those, there's a little human drama. Something is wrong, you know, something brought them to the Holy Well. So, you know, you have to think of those people and what stories would they have to tell. There's probably somebody, maybe their eyesight failing or something like that, came to the Holy Well to get, most Holy Wells were thought to be curative of eyes. But then these people lived in very smoky houses, turf fires and things like that. So I would have thought any clean, clear, cool water would have given their eyes a bit of a boost. I'm not so sure about the glass woman there. I don't know what connection she would have had. Padre Pio was a big favorite at these Holy Wells. But again, as I said, I don't know what these little articles were left for some reason. Some leave money. Key ring, I can't imagine what that would be. But the wee doggy, a child somewhere, sick maybe. So back then to the main thrust of this talk, the abandoned houses and what was left in them and the life that might have been led in them when they were in full swing. This house wasn't too far away from me where I stay in Kerry. And I must have passed it 100 times and didn't know it was there. And one day I was out for a walk and I could see chimney peeping up above the trees. So I made it my way to see if I could get in, and I climbed in through a back window and was amazed at what I found in there, this piano. There was a lot of other stuff as well. You wonder about the, you know, the hoolies or the hijinks or the parties they might have had in here. All over, all finished. In this particular house, also there was this photograph just sitting on the windowsill. You can see the name up there, Eugene Foley, written on that, Dukes, written on that piece of paper. There was also a Christmas card or a birthday card or something there, which I took with me. I thought I'd leave it there just, and it was a letter from England. I was talking about the, you know, the life in England, what they were doing. Patricia made her first Holy Communion last week, and somebody else did something else. And you should see the price of turf over here, turf mold for the garden. Paddy, if your bog was over here, you'd have made a fortune. Lovely, newsy little letter, and as I say, I took it away with me. And I held it for about 7 or 8 years. And then somebody came over and started to renovate this house. And so that was the end of my photographing in it. Now, I never met the people who took it over. They were from England, and I believe they were Foleys. So it may be somebody connected to the letter that was written. So I gave the letter. I didn't meet the people that were in it, but I gave the letter to their next door neighbor, whom I do know. And I said, would you ever give that if you see that whoever owns the house now, because it certainly belongs more to him than it did to me. This was in Donegal. And again, what do we read out of it? We see the shoe there. It looks like a young lady's shoe. Maybe fond of the dancing, going to the hops, and the ever-present Sacred Heart. Just behind me, as I took this photograph, there was a wardrobe, and of course I had to have a peek in it, and I came across this 21st birthday, the key, the key of the door, the key of the house. That was a lovely thing, and it means that somebody thought very much of whoever it was, just the girl that turned 21. It's a lovely looking article, but a useless present. It'll sit on the mantelpiece for a while, and then it sort of relegate. What do you do with it? Relegate it to the wardrobe, and there it lies. And God knows where the young lady is now. People ask me sometimes, "Are you not afraid going into these houses?" And well, I suppose sometimes a wee bit apprehensive. Particularly in the north of Ireland, you're always a little bit apprehensive that, some subversive organizations sometimes use these abandoned houses to hide little caches of weapons or things like that. And there was always the ever-present, well, maybe, there might be booby trapped or that. But in fact, my biggest danger was floorboards given away and disappearing into the room downstairs. Which nearly happened on one occasion, but it never did. This was quite a funny story about this. I had seen this house. It's on a country road, up off a country road, and this old cottage. So I knew people living on the road, the Moors, for those of you who know. And I thought I'd call in here. I was on my own. I'll call in there and get some information. And so there was a wee lassie, Geraldine, there. She used to look after my kids when they were small. And Geraldine worked over in the supermarket in the village. I said, what's the story about that old house over there? And she said, oh, that's old. I told her what we were doing, taking pictures of old houses. I said, oh, that's cranky old fella. He's you want to be aware of him. So, but he's working in Galway at the minute, and so he only comes home at weekends. So you'll be all right there tomorrow. And so I went home and got my mate, and we went over and got into the house. And we did. We got some very good pictures. That's a particular favorite of mine. And this President Kennedy was held in pretty much the same esteem as the Sacred Heart and the Virgin Mary. In a lot of houses throughout Ireland, it wasn't uncommon to see him up on the wall in between the holy pictures. But the next day after we were in here, we were heading off, and we called over to the supermarket in Glenbeigh, and I was looking I wanted to get my paper, I wanted to get a sandwich. And we walked into the supermarket. I could see Geraldine down at the far end. She saw me. We didn't say anything to one another. We're too far away. I turned right. Colin just walked on down and got his sandwich. I went back out to the car, and I was sitting there when he came out. He says, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" "See that girl gave me the sandwich. She wanted to know, did we get any pictures up in the old cottage?" Now, how in the name of God, we saw nobody and nobody saw us. I said, "Oh, that's village for you now." I passed where that house was a month or so ago, and that's what's there in its place now. So the plumbing in Galway paid off. And these are two houses very near to me. They're within a 10-minute walk of a secluded beach where my kids spent their summer holidays, and within a 10-minute walk of an 18-hole golf course that overlooks Dingle Bay and is overlooked by the McGillicuddy Reeks. And these houses should be worth a fortune, and yet they just sat there, boarded up, and I don't know who owns them or what, but it does seem an awful shame. Now, why are there so many abandoned houses? And they're not all old. They're not wee hovels or anything like that. Some of them are fantastic. So those are not the same two houses. The pictures up at the top. And, these were substantial homes at one time. And I can only come to the conclusion that, when the last person is carried out and start looking for a will, and you can't find one, or you do find one and you discover that the house has been left between, 3 or 4 nephews or 3 or 4 sons and daughters, and one's in New York and one's in Australia and then you're into inheritance tax and gift tax and this sort of thing. There's a lot of money to be paid. And you're never always sure of, there's disputes then over the boundaries as to, it's accepted when people are living there. But when you come to actually assume ownership, again, they had to get it all measured and different people. Oh, no, that's my ditch. No, it's not. And so there they sit while, they try and work out who's going to do anything with it. And they say an Irishman, sell it. Well, he would sell his blood before he would sell land. So there they sit, just deteriorating. Back up north here, this was over near the Mourne Mountain somewhere. What this beautiful chair was doing in this place, I do not know. The whole suite was there. And if I'd had a van with me, I'd have taken this home. It's better than anything I have. And I love these, you can actually see the people that were connected to the house. And those 2 nuns, obviously on a day out, great humor and lovely family portrait. Just remnants of another era. And lovely colors. No TVs then. Looks very 1940s, 50s. The fire was the sort of center of the house. That was where it provided all the heat and very often all the cooking. My mother was an Irish speaker. And, when she was out somewhere away for a while. When she'd come home, she would often say, "Níl tin tán le the hin tán féin." There's no fireside like your own fireside. And it was very true. But these firesides, I'm afraid, have lapsed into desolation, desecration, or whatever. This is another feature of Irish homes. These are a sort of blast from blast. Was the holy water font. They'll drop a holy water in that little receptacle down at the bottom of it. You can see there's another one there on the mantelpiece, and another one at the. You've very often got it near the front door, and people in the house, when they were going out, they would often just bless themselves almost without thinking. And you think, just to be safe on the journey wherever they're going, you think, well, that's a very ancient custom. But if you watch footballers coming onto the field, say particularly the substitutes coming on, it's amazing the number of them as they step out onto the pitch. They'll drop down onto a knee and touch the grass and then bless themselves. The same thing, they're looking good luck as they go out, that they'll get over it safely. And that's what they were. That's the custom. That was a custom back then. As I say, you can tell in the south of Ireland, most of these would be Catholic homes, and that's why you get these Catholic pictures. You don't see a lot of them now, and you do see them in junk shops for sale. You go into a lot of houses now before you would see one, but they were ever present in Catholic homes. Protestant homes, and you get them in the north of Ireland, you would get more excerpts from scripture and things like that, rather than religious icons, just little what did I say? Anyway, excerpts from the Bible and stuff. Now those plates were photographed in this house. Now this was a very substantial house in its time. You wonder just what went wrong, you know, that it's now, when you from that front door looking up those stairs, you can see the sky. You're looking through the roof up on the top, and you wonder just what happened that, you know, this house is in the state it's in. Sometimes there are no pictures or anything, but there are little clues as to where their affiliations lay. Here's another feature of the old houses was the half door. In the morning, they would open the door and let in a bit of fresh air and let out the smoke out of the room from the smoky fire. But that meant, you know, the chickens and the pigs and the goats and what have you come wandering into the kitchen. So you had the half door that you closed it over, and it still allowed light and fresh air in, but kept the animals out. This house was in Kells, and this was the into the bedroom. And again, that's, I love that sort of the old wall and the fungi or whatever growing on it. Love the color of it. And this was the same room. So whoever lived in this house was, you know, they were readers. Lashons of books about the place. So that's, so you learn something about, you know, the people in every house. And there was a sporting gentleman in the house too, although it's a long time since he hit a ball in anger. You know, those things were expensive articles. They are today, and they always were. And, you know, just to see this house in, well, literally in ruin. And again, you have to wonder what happened, why. This is one of the first houses I got into on my own. I never break into a house. You know, if the door is open, I go in. If it's tied with a bit of string, I open it, you know, and tie it when I leave. Sometimes you can see inside dressing tables and lovely stuff, or dressers. And but you'd be tempted to put your shoulder to the door, and the lock would be fairly flimsy, but I never did. This one was just tied with a bit of string. And I went back a couple of months later with a friend. Said, well, I'll show you this great house. And there was a lock on the door, so we didn't get in. And I passed it last month, and it's just a heap of ruins. Nothing was ever done with it. So these were pictures that were taken in it. This is amusing insofar as you have the picture of the Sacred Heart there, and beside it a picture of cowboys and Indians. So there were kids in the house at some stage. Now this house, this is photographed from a famine graveyard, which I've spent a lot of time in. And I've watched this house for years. I thought, that's bound to be abandoned. I'm sure there's nobody there. So when I walked up and had a wee quiet walk around it, no, it couldn't be anything. No. So I made my way around to the front to go and have a look at it. And this is what walked out to meet me. Mick Murphy. the Iron Man. It turned out there was no. He asked me, where are you from? I said, from County Down. Oh, great footballers. I said, oh, do you watch them on the TV? No, he said, I don't have a TV. But we got talking, and there was a bicycle lying there. And just to sort of keep the conversation going, I said to him, do a bit of cycling, do you? He said, no, not since I won the Round Ireland race in 1958. I said, "Don't, you're not serious?" Yeah. He says, I was a cyclist, and he did. I checked up after I left. The Ross Talton, it was called there. I think it was 800 miles, 120 miles a day or something over 7 days, 7 or 8 days, and he did win it. And the legend, no, it's not a legend, it's a story. On 4 nights of the Ross, they would stop at various towns around Ireland. He would cycle out to a field in the country, and if he saw cows, cattle, he would get into the field and tap their veins and fill a bottle of blood and drink it, because that's what the Maasai warriors did. And in the morning, he would get raw meat out of the butchers and be eating it going out of the shop, because that's what Jack Dempsey, the box world champion, did. So he started to tell me about his life, and he showed me his gym. He's still working at the gym, and he was a circus strongman. He did circus tricks on the roads, on the streets, when he was short of a few bob, the flame swallowing. He was a champion wrestler. He was a champion weightlifter, a circus strongman, and he spent after he won the race, he emigrated to England, never raced again. So he had endless stories about his time in England and London in the 60s. He was friendly with John Conte, the boxer, and Henry Cooper's twin brother, and endless stories about the antics that they got up to. And this is the way he's living now, and he's as happy as Larry. He ended up in hospital at one time. I went over to visit him in the hospital, and when they saw what he was going home to, they insisted on getting him a cottage, something, or a pensioner's bungalow. He wouldn't stay in it. He wanted back home. And he lay in Tintagel again, although he doesn't even have a fireplace. He cooks on a gas ring. And if you look down on the bottom left there, see the Dettol spray. So there's going to be no bugs are going to creep up on him. What he has it for, I can't imagine. He doesn't even have running water in the place. There's a well outside the door. And see that table there behind him? If he's looking for a document or some letter or a photograph around, he can find it there. Just he knows exactly where to put the hand in, and he get it. So poor Mick has gone to his great reward. But I miss him terribly. He was the first man I always called to see when I was down to Ken. You didn't have to speak. He did all the talking. There's a little blast from the past who have no memory of where I saw that or photographed it. This house was in Kerry too. But by the way, Mick, if you look up, if anybody's interested, if you look up Mick Murphy, the Iron Man on Google, you'll find out all about him. And I contacted RTE and they sent about him, and they sent a team down, and he was part of the Sunday documentary, which you'll still get, Convicts of the Road, it was called. It's still available on the RTE site, RTE radio site. This house was outside Portmagee. It was a big house, but the stairs were rotten. We couldn't get up the stairs. They were in danger of collapse. But this was down in the basement, where obviously the kitchen and the cooking was done. It was quite a posh house, or had been in its time. I was told subsequently it was a rent collector's house. He would have collected rents from all the various houses round about, probably owned by absentee landlords. And this was the nerve center of the place. You can see the swivel chair and the telephone. The next house we went into, this on Valentia Island, had a piano as well. And again, you wonder what sort of music did they play? Was it classical, or was it Irish, or was it, did they have hoolies, dances, parties in here? Who knows? This is in the same house, the same room. And again, I just love the colors, shapes on the wall behind, the mold, and the varying paints or the distempers that they had on it. This room was upstairs, and I don't know what those bottles, why they were there, why they were kept. None of them were alcohol bottles. They were all, Lucozade or stuff like that. Unless they had a wee still or something out the back somewhere, and they did fill it with fill them with poachine or something. I don't know. This is actually the same room. Now, this house was also on Valentia Island, and it was probably the nearest house in Ireland to New York. It was over in the west coast of Valencia. And this picture is about 15 years old, but I passed it last month and it's just a heap of stones. There's nothing there now. This was near Cunana, near Carsavine. And you never know what you're going to find in some of these houses. This one was near Ross Bay Beach. And in the next room, what in the name of God is that doing in there? And what did they plan on doing with it? This was taken up in the morns, and you can almost see the 2 or 3 year old kid cycling around the kitchen floor on that, but it was a long time ago. Same house. The teapot, big fixture, a big part of rural life. Now, I said I never broke into a house, but I wasn't beyond a bit of subterfuge. This house, this photograph was taken a couple of months ago, but 16 years ago, it was for sale. And myself and my mate, Colin, we could see through the window that there was, plenty of holy pictures and stuff inside. And we'd, I'd love to get in there. But there was a lock on the door. It was a Yale lock or something. But I knew that the estate agent's name was on the for sale signs, and I knew him fairly well. So, he was 20 miles away, but I called in to see him and said, there's a house out there I would like to get in to see. He says, are you thinking of buying it? I said, no, I'm not thinking of taking pictures in it, but I don't want anybody annoying me. I don't want anybody showing me around the house. But I want to get in and take some pictures. I told him more or less what I was after. So I said, I'll sort that out. So he rang, 2 brothers owned it. He rang them. And he said he had an agent there for somebody in America who was sent this man around looking for houses in Kerry with a view to maybe buying them. So they want in to take some photographs to send back to him, but they just want to take some pictures. So could you just leave the key at the door outside on the windowsill? And they did, and we got in. And again, we got some lovely pictures. See all that material that comes down the chimneys. I can only assume it's birds trying to build nests, and they keep losing the sticks down the chimney. But again, lovely textures and stains and mold and what have you. See, the bottom left picture there is St. George and the Dragon, and you would wonder what connection did he have with Kerry. St. George and the Dragon. I mean, and this picture of the window in the same house. Now, when you think that some lady went into town and bought lace curtain and put them up on the window and was probably so pleased with them, you know, what tidied up the place, and God love her or God rest her, look at them now. You know, it's sad, you know, and again, when you think of the people that lived in this house and how vital and how lively and how ordinary in many ways, ordinary people just doing ordinary things, that it was. Now, Emma asked me when we were talking about putting on this talk, she said, do you still do that? Do you still go around old houses? I don't go looking for them. That's the difference. But if I saw one that looked promising and was easily accessible, I would, you know, poke my nose in if I could. And this picture was taken last month. Because I was doing this talk, I did have a drive around and have a look to see, and found a couple. This was one, and those ferns are actually growing out of the carpet in the middle of the floor. This house is actually across the road from. Remember, I told you about the plumbers working in Galway. This house is just about a few hundred yards from it. And when I visited it 10, 12 years ago, it was locked. And this time they are building something in the field beside. So I just had to wander over, and the door was open. So I went in. And this picture was in the same house. And I like this. I just love those colors and textures. And this is the last one. It was of very little interest. I just stepped over the window there that you can see behind, stepped in. There was nothing really interesting except this globe. It's a lovely looking article, and I'm sure, unless it's riddled with woodworm or something, I would imagine a thing like that is valuable. But as I say, apart from that, there was nothing worth photographing. So that ends my presentation, and I can do now no more than wish that God will bless your home, all our homes indeed, and remembering there's no fireside like your own fireside. Although there are not too many firesides now. There's, you know, the television is really the center of the attraction nowadays. So again, thank you very much. So thank you, Emma. That's me finished now. You can unshare me or whatever you do.
Thanks so much, Kieran. That was a fascinating journey through your photos. I'm really aware that when we did the selection for the online gallery, we were looking really looking at the theme of hunger, which is the festival's theme this year, and we had essentially looked at how hunger had driven your work. So it was a hunger to find connection with these places and with the people that had lived there, and this idea of how the imagery that you concoct with some of those objects and the closeness with which you can photograph things sort of shows us that hunger for the past, for nostalgia, for how things have been. It's like a space just beyond memory that I find really interesting. But in your talk, you did an awful lot more about the kind of wider context of those cottages, and it was really fascinating. Thank you so much. I've got a few questions, but if anybody else has got any to ask, please do raise your hand, wave at me, stick something in the chat so that I can come. Jean, I've just seen you wave. I will come to you in 2 ticks. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, photography is quite a lonely act, and it sounds as though you do an awful lot on your own. So I wonder kind of how you validate your work, how you make it make sense to other people and know that it's a really good quality.
I don't think too much about it. I just do it. I present the pictures as I got them, and other people can make up their own mind about them. I mean, what I'm doing is not original. It's been done by other photographers and has always been done by other photographers. Each photographer will have his own area that he concentrates on because it's nearest to him. But I mean, I just take these anyway for mostly my own pleasure and perhaps to present to camera clubs and things like that. I'm not too bothered about what they think of quality or the integrity of it or anything like that. It's just a bit of fun for me, really.
One of the things that I will tell you is that in the chat, Vittorio, who hasn't got a mic or camera today, so can't tell you this himself, so I'm just going to read the comment that he's put here, because I think although you don't need validation from outside, it's a lovely thing. So Vittorio has said, I have heard Kieran present many times and always enjoy listening to his stories. His images are excellent with great thought-provoking content. This is only a subset of his vast set of images, which are all well captured and come with their own stories. I have been fortunate to travel with Kieran around Kerry, where he's been more than generous, sharing his knowledge of photographic spots in the country. He's looking forward to your next trip. He says he never took me to any houses, and so thank you for the presentation. So that's just a little outsider in commentary on what you've presented today. Jean, can I come to you?
Oh yeah, thanks very much for that. It was really lovely. I really enjoyed that. And the first thing I thought was how beautiful the pictures are, really good quality pictures. What I was wondering was whether you've got like a database. I do a lot of family tree stuff, and when I look at the stuff that's in those houses is so interesting. And I just wonder if a genealogist wanted to try and research or anything, is there any way that you can find out from a database? Do you have a database of the houses? And if you find like letters or photographs, I think most times you seem to be leaving them there, but having been through that experience, because my grandmother's home ended up like one of those houses and eventually fell down, unfortunately, before I'd actually found out about it. And I know from experience how difficult it is to try and then put that situation right, because there's so many people involved, and the legal side of it is really difficult. You can probably tell from my voice I'm in England, and in England no solicitor will touch anything to do with Irish land. So it's really difficult to sort of try and save some of these houses, which is so frustrating, because I'd assumed that all my family had passed away, and it was only through going back and looking at the cottage and finding people in the area I found out that I had hundreds of cousins and a whole new life that I knew nothing about, which is absolutely wonderful.
And where are they?
Wexford, Oilgate in Wexford.
Wexford, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's an Irish connection there. Yes, I don't. I mean, I'm just a photographer. I would love to find out a bit more, but I did intend. The last time I was down, I called on 2 or 3 people to find out why are those houses. I'm sure the local people would know why that house has not been sold, or why nobody has gone into it. And basically, I talked about the Foleys coming back. That letter I found that I gave to the next door neighbor, and I stopped the next door neighbor because I wanted to find out. He's an individual that would know what's going on in the area, but he was too busy to stop. He says, I have to go somewhere, I don't know. So I never got much information. I said, what about the people next door, the Foleys? I said, I don't think that's sorted yet, So it would appear that although somebody is renovating the house, somebody else isn't all that happy about it,
Yeah.
So that could drag on for generations,
Oh, no.
The genealogy of it, I wouldn't be able to give you any guidelines. I was never into that aspect of things, really. Just pictures, that's really all I was concerned with.
Yeah. So do you have a database of all of the houses that you've taken?
No, I don't. No.
Oh yeah. Have you published a book or?
No, I haven't. No.
I'm giving you a few jobs to do here.
Yes, you are. You are. No, it's like everything else. I'm going to do it, but I've so many other books to do, the travels, the landscapes too, and God knows if I'll ever get around to it. No, it's I showed you pictures of, the India and stuff, the exotic and the fantastic things there are, sights to see there. I'm never happier than when I'm in an old house like that on my own and imagining things, if you like, but also, can I make a picture out of this? And I get this, the satisfaction that I get out of, a picture that ostensibly to somebody else is just rubbish, and of no value. And to me, it is. As I say, I'm as happy in there as I would be, walking along the bank of the Grand Canyon or that. Not that you can really compare them, but as long as I'm taking pictures of something that I'm interested in, I'm happy.
Oh, I'm sure somebody will see one of those pictures one day and it'll mean an awful lot to them, when it belongs to their family. But just before I go, I'll just tell you a funny little thing. Last time I was at my grandmother's cottage, which is now just a heap of stones, and somebody had left a headless child of Prague there, which has been there for a couple of years.
Yes.
But when I went, somebody had taken it. They'd apparently asked one of the cousins, could they take it? And they said yes. And I was absolutely outraged. I thought,
right.
That's just, the child of Prague on a sacred site mustn't be touched, sort of thing.
Yes.
So now I've come to England and I'm trying to, I've actually just bought a new child of Prague. But of course, it's got its head on. So now I've got to find some way of accidentally getting it.
That's right. And you never stick a head back on the child of Prague.
Oh,
you leave it.
That's the next job I've got to do when I go back to Ireland is take the child of Prague back and put it back on the cottage site.
Yes, yes.
Where will you put the head, Jean?
You just leave it. You just leave it beside it.
Oh, you don't give it another site. Thanks ever so much for that question, Jean. That's really interesting. Just to touch on that, though, there is a site called Island Reaching Out or Island Exome, and it's the kind of lead genealogical site for Irish history. But what's kind of interesting about it is instead of it being a bit more like Ancestry.com, where it's just census information or whatever, you can actually leave anecdotal stories and evidence about people there and images, I believe. And even though they make, the more people that put into it, the more crossover there will be and the more it will become a searchable database. So as and when you find things of interest like that, that might be a way of feeding it in. Thinking about National Archives, Kieran, I just wondered whether or not there was any view to whether or not these images should form part of a national archive. Is there somewhere that, as a destination, that you see them being?
And that's it. That's I never thought of that. I do. There is a national archive. There's a photographic archive in Dublin, and I know I have a friend who goes around photograph. It's amazing what they are interested in. I have a friend who goes around photographing the murals in Belfast, and they represent the political stances and the political history of the day that they were, they change, quite often depending on what the news is at the time. And he has just a very simple, compact camera, and he goes around photographing these. And the what you might call it, gallery in Dublin, the archival gallery in Dublin, take all of them from him and they put them in this archival paper and everything. They're keen on them, and I would pass by them and I wouldn't think of photographing them. So, but again, if you went down with these pictures to I'm sure they say, God, we've got thousands of those. We haven't room for any more, because it's not. Most photographers do a bit of it, I was probably a bit more ruthless than most, and again, I had a couple of friends who were into the same lark, we did it together, and we had some adventures.
I wonder if it's worth approach though, because it's such a large body of work that you've got across such a particular period. And I know you
Yeah,
keep saying that
yeah,
those
yeah.
murals are of a particular political moment, but actually, so are yours.
Yeah,
Yes,
a lot of
absolutely. I do agree with Emma. Yeah.
I just think the quality of them and there's a tenderness in them that isn't so easy to capture, and I wonder if that's interesting.
I'm interested in you saying that, you know, that because I do have an empathy with the people. Those houses, like when we were kids, that was holidays. You were brought down to the family, you know, your mother's or your father's family home. And I mean, I remember those fireplaces with the crook on it where you hung the, you know, the pots over the fire. There was no toilet, there was no running water. You went to the pump to get water and that. One of my earliest memories is I was sent with my father down to Monaghan, where he was from, Scottstown. And I was 7 at the time. And my memory is after Mass on Sunday, round the back of the pubs were closed on Sunday, and a window was opened and we all climbed in through, and I was pushed in through the window into this pub, and you're sitting around a smoky room, you know, after Mass. And that's one of my earliest memories. But that was holidays, you know. And but so I remember I've seen somebody, there was somebody in the club did a show of these houses recently. But they're all marble fireplaces, you know. They're a much more recent, these houses, I mean, because they're 20 years old when I was taking them, you know, and there were 20 years before that they had been furnished and what have you. So they really do, a lot of them go back, you know, to a period. You know, it would just about be my lifetime, for want of a better word, going back to when I was born. And so, yeah, I never thought of that. I don't have the neck, to tell you the truth, to go in asking anybody, would you be?
We have.
Huh?
We have. We could,
Yeah.
we could use this to do that. We could make an approach.
Yeah, it's a thought. Yeah, it's a thought.
Well, let's come back to that then, because I think there's something about that. There's something in that collection of images that has the potential to tell the story of an older and a modern Ireland. And I think that is of interest. And I think also there is probably a market for those within the diaspora community that are no longer in Ireland.
Yes.
That would so I would come to you in 2 ticks, Jean.
Yeah.
That I just think would show an interest in that and would have a passion towards that, and that it might help link them to what's happening with those ideas. So I just, I think there's more legs in this. Catherine's just said they would make a wonderful book. And Vittorio said he's really sorry that he's got
I thought he was gone.
No, Vittorio's still there.
It's a good job I didn't talk about him then.
That's right. It was Harleth also had to leave, sorry. So Jean, coming back to you.
Oh, sorry. It was just a thought that I had. I was thinking about Michael Fortune, who does a lot of folklore stuff, and he takes lots of photographs in Wexford, and he takes a lot, just pictures of like Irish dresses, and people are fascinated. He's done 2 calendars now just of Irish dresses, and they are absolutely fascinating. I've had one myself, and I think your pictures, and it's not really a calendar thing, is it? But for a book, I honestly do think people would buy a book of those pictures. Really, honestly.
No, they do, but I mean, there are quite a few books of that type done by more famous photographers than me, and it's hard work selling them, actually, you know, unless you're a very well-known photographer, and even well-known photographers struggle to cut. You'll sell a certain amount of them, but whether it's worth all the trouble you're going to have to do to get them published, I would think not. You would. These people are doing it just for the love of getting their work out, you know, to show to people. But financially, I don't think it pays. You know.
And it's another job, isn't it? Because it's not.
Mm.
It
It's
isn't,
another
it
job.
isn't just about
Yeah.
giving the photos, is it? It's about the
right.
framing of all of that, writing the story around,
Yes,
doing all of
yes,
those
yes,
things.
yes.
And actually, if that gives you mission drift from what it is you most want to do, which is go and take more photos,
That's right.
then
Exactly.
that becomes
Exactly.
more and more of a job. Which is why
Exactly.
I was, in a sense, that's why I was wondering about the archiving of them.
Yes.
So if you
yes,
don't
yeah.
make them specifically because you need a return on them,
Yeah.
but actually if they were a gift to an archive
Yes.
they
Yes.
could use,
Yes.
I wondered if
Yes.
there might be a value in that.
Yes.
I'm really aware that we're coming up to 3:10, and we said that we might finish around the 3 o'clock mark.
That's right. That's
If
right.
people are happy to stay, I'm happy to carry on, but I need an indication of that. In the chat, I've just dropped this event link in because the recording will be available there a little bit later today.
Right.
I've also dropped the original online gallery in the Kieran's work
Good. Good.
that we
Good.
selected
Yes.
for the festival, which
Yes.
are 50 images almost entirely inside homes, but looking at objects that really we felt connected with that theme of hunger.
Yes. Yes.
I've dropped a link in about Iron Man McMurphy.
Good. Good.
Oh.
Good. Good.
I've also dropped a link in about Island Exo, particularly for Eugene, so you could have a quick look.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've also cheekily just dropped our events link in for the rest of the festival, just so that
Good.
you have it there.
Yeah.
Unless anybody flags up that they've got another question to ask right away, I'm going to invite us all to come on camera and applause for Kieran so that he can hear our thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
Well, it was a really enlightening talk.
Good.
Thank you for your
Good,
kindness.
good.
Thank
Not
you
at
for your
all.
generosity. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
being part of the festival. We
Right.
really
All the best.
appreciate it. Now,
Thank you.
Kieran, don't you go anywhere. We're going to say
Okay.
goodbye to everybody else.
Bye
And I'll
bye.
stop the recording now. Bye, Catherine. Thanks so much for being with us.